Welcome to Advantage. I'm your host, David Young, and I hope you've had a great week. I just got back from my trip to New Orleans. I had mentioned on the last episode that I was going to be. I actually have been to New Orleans twice in about 3 weeks, but this was my second trip, and this time, the last time I went by myself. This time, my associate director, David Morris, went with me, as well as one of my superintendents from CKEC, Sheila Mitchell of Anderson County, and then one of Anderson County's principals, Robert B. Turner Elementary's principal, Jason Alexander, all went with me to the AASA conference. We were selected to present, so we got to do a presentation there. It was great. We had a great time. We learned a lot. It was a really good experience for us. And so while I'm talking about New Orleans, I mean, I know you all are dying to know what food I ate. I think I told you the last time I went to New Orleans that I focused on the desserts. I ate king cake and bread pudding and, beignets and the whole deal. So this time I focused on Cajun food. I had, for the first time ever, I had crawfish pie. I had red beans and rice. And more importantly, I went to an NBA basketball game and had red beans and rice while I was at the NBA basketball game. So I thought that was kind of unique. I had grits. I had some kind of Cajun sausage, and it was just awesome. It was delicious. I enjoyed the food, but then even beyond that, I want to give New Orleans a little shout out. The people there were just so nice, and so welcoming, and it was, to be honest, the city was one of the cleanest, well lit, safest cities that I visited in a while. In fact, the night we went to the NBA game, it was over a mile away, and we just walked there from our hotel room, and we were right downtown. And it was just the weather was great. It was just a really, really good visit. So, like I said, I've been there twice in the past 3 weeks, so I've had my fill for now. But it was a great place to visit, and I would definitely go back. So back to, I said a minute ago, I hope your week has gone well. I hope things are going well for you. Here, the other thing I would mention in Kentucky, the weather has gotten much warmer. It's feeling like spring, which is awesome. We've had a tough winter, and so I'm really glad that warmer weather's here. Now, I would say in your school right now, it's March, so you're coming out of what I used to call the dog days of February, and I'm going to bet you're really trying to lean into the routine. A lot of schools and districts, not just in Kentucky, but across the United States, have missed a lot of school. We had a rough winter, really just across the board. There's been a lot of sickness that have gone around since Christmas break, and so a lot of our schools are really just a few weeks into the semester, and we had some major flooding in our eastern Kentucky counties as well, and so they missed a lot of days for that. So I know you're probably trying to lean into the routine and trying to cover as much ground as you possibly can. So that's part of what I want to talk about today. I mentioned that it's March, and I think in some ways March is one of the toughest months for principals, if not the toughest. And here's why I say that. Spring break is right around the corner, and everybody is looking forward to that. But at the same time, once we get past spring break, it is like a sprint to the finish. We're just going as fast as we can go, and it just seems like we can't get the year to slow down. And so most spring breaks are around the end of March, 1st to April. And so as the principal, you want to get as much meaningful work done as possible before spring break. But March is also tough, of course, because there's so much to do. I don't want to bum you out or stress you out. But here's a list of things, and I wrote these down. Here's a list of things I can think about just off the top of my head that you're probably working on right now. Number one, evaluations. You're trying to get your teacher evaluations and your classified staff evaluations You may still have observations that you need to do. You're trying to wrap everybody's evaluation up and schedule their summative evaluation conferences, and to be able to get that done as do it well, but also do it efficiently. Number two, testing. Testing's about to begin, and there's state testing, of course, but there's also local testing that you do in your school or district. Not like final exams will be here before we know it. Many of you have like what I would call through course exams, like benchmark assessments that you give 3 times a year, et cetera. And then high school principals, you all have even more testing because you have some national testing. You're taking advanced placement tests, you're taking the ACT. So there's just a lot of testing that happens around this time. The third thing I could think of off the top of my head was, most schools have end of year events and end of year traditions. And I know those don't happen until May, but as the principal, you have to start planning for them, in March if you haven't already. So you're thinking about things like award ceremonies, field days, parent gatherings for this year, or parent gatherings to get, I know at the high school, many times you'll have like transition parent meetings, or at the middle school where you'll have sixth grade parents come in this spring, parents of sixth graders next year, or parents of freshmen for next year. So you have all that. And then, of course, bless our high school principals' hearts, I'm going to come back to them. They have graduation. And then many of them have project graduation after that overnight. And there's just so much planning and organization that's required for that. So that's only 3 things. And I've already said a lot that you're working on right now. The fourth thing is you're thinking about next year's master schedule. And of course, that has a couple elements. The master's first element of the master schedule is what courses are you going to offer, and what's your day going to look like? If you're at a middle school or high school, are you going to stay with the same bell schedule? Are you going to offer the same electives, et cetera? And then what periods are you going to offer those? At the elementary school, you're trying to figure out things like when are the reading blocks and math blocks going to be, and how are you going to be set up so that if you have an interventionist or a coach, you have special education teachers, and you want to be able to set your blocks of learning up so that they can be in to do their thing as well during that time in collaboration with your classroom teachers. But then master scheduling is also about scheduling the kids. You have to get the schedule right, but then you have to schedule the kids into those courses and make sure that they're where they're supposed to be at the time they need to be there. The fifth thing I could think of off the top of my head was professional development. So in February and March, you're typically making the professional learning opportunities available, or you're planning for those. You're deciding which teachers, which departments, which grade levels are going to be doing what type of training. Of course, I highly recommend that, as opposed to just saying to teachers, hey, you need to go find 24 hours of PD somewhere. I highly recommend you having a plan for moving your school forward and moving the needle in particular areas that align with those agreements that we talk about a lot. But right now, you're planning for how many days do we have, and who's going to be in those training sessions, who's going to lead those training sessions. So you're trying to finalize the professional learning for the summer. And then the last one, and it's definitely not really the last one, but the last one that I could think of off the top of my head was hiring. Um, After spring break, if not before, it's going to be time to post positions that are going to be open, from retirements or folks that aren't going to be coming back to fill their position next year for one reason or the other. It's going to be time to post those positions and begin the hiring process for next year. Now, right here, I want to stop and put in a plug for a previous episode. Speaking of hiring, I won't go all the way into it again, but look back in previous episodes. I did an episode a while back with a gentleman, a former superintendent named Mike LaFavors, on talent-based hiring. And so before you get into the hiring process, I I encourage you to go back and listen to that podcast, or that you can't see that one on YouTube. So you have to listen to that one on talent-based hiring. So again, I know that's not the whole list. I know there's way more than that. You are trying to finish this year strong, and you're trying to plan for the summer and plan for next year all at the same time. You're landing the plane and rebuilding the next plane all at the same time. So again, I don't say all that to make you feel overwhelmed. I want you to know you aren't alone. Um, all good principals are thinking about those things right now, and so we want to. I want to give you some tips today that hopefully can help you manage some of those many things that you have going on, so that it maybe isn't so overwhelming for you in the next month or two. So I've made a top 5 list. So 5 things, 5 strategies for you to use to survive and hopefully thrive as you go throughout the spring semester. So here they are. Number 1, delegate but monitor. So I'll say each one of these twice. Delegate but monitor. You do, I'll start with the last word, monitor. You do need to monitor everything, because at the end of the day, as the principal, you're responsible for it all. So you do need to monitor everything, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything. One time I heard a very smart person say that as a leader, you should delegate anything that somebody else can do 90% as well as you can. So I think that's probably not bad advice. That probably depends on the situation, but if there's something that somebody else can do 90% as well as you can, you should consider delegating that task to them. So how do you delegate? Well, you need to use your team. If you have other administrators that work with you, you need to use your teacher leaders, your superstars that we've talked about. Hopefully, you have created a leadership academy, or you have an informal group of teacher leaders. Even, I know they're trying to finish out the year as well, but they can help you with some things during the spring. In fact, what I find is that other people are typically happy to take on some extra responsibility if you approach them the right way. If you approach them with sincerity, if you approach them with trust and gratitude and appreciation, and if you approach them in that way, they also typically don't mind if you regularly check in on them and check on how it's going, and even make suggestions along the way. So, you know, we worry sometimes, and I think we worry too much about micromanaging. Um, and I'm going to tell you today, if you approach people with sincerity, trust, gratitude, and appreciation, and ask them to help you out, um, what you should not do is you shouldn't just say, I trust you, and don't ever look into it again. Because, again, you're ultimately responsible for it. You still need to be a part in it. You still need to check in and, like I said, make suggestions. You may have a certain way that you hope things are done. So you do need to trust them, but I don't think you have to just blindly trust. They won't feel like you're micromanaging if you are sincere and show gratitude and just touch base with them from time to time to see how things are going. Number 2, make sure that your teachers have a tangible plan for finishing the year on a high note instructionally. Again, make sure your teachers have a tangible plan for finishing the year on a high note instructionally. And here's what I mean by that. Your teachers at this point in the year, I mean, we're down to the short rows now. Like, we're close to the end of the year. So your teachers should be able to show you whether they are or aren't on pace for teaching all their content by the end of the school year. And they should also be able to show you whether they're on pace to make sure that all students have a chance to master the standards at a high level. So it's not just about covering the content. It's about having a plan to make sure kids have a chance at mastering that content, and a good chance of doing that. It's not too much to ask. It's not putting something else on their plate to ask them to show you that, to have a tangible plan. I will tell you, it's going to be easy for your superstar teachers. It won't be a heavy lift for them at all if you sit down and have that conversation with them during a PLC, or if you just ask them to give you something. And remember, if it's not hard for your superstar teachers, remember that your main job is to create a whole building of teachers who emulate your superstars. Now, their plan needs to, when they turn this into you, or when they sit down and talk with you about it, their plan needs to take into account that there are interruptions that are going to happen, like end of the year field trips, assemblies, and some of those other traditions that we mentioned earlier. So they need to acknowledge those and reflect those in their plan. If a teacher isn't on pace or they don't have a plan, you or one of your leadership team need to sit down with them and make a plan collaboratively. And then over the course of the next few months, touch base with them regularly to make sure that they are, to give them support, but also accountability to make sure that they are implementing that plan. So right now is the time to check with your teachers to make sure they have a plan for covering everything and giving kids a chance to master the content and finishing the year strong instructionally. The third tip is you want to try to keep this time of year, everybody kind of gets overwhelmed. So you need to keep the motivation high and the climate as positive as possible. Again, keep the motivation high and the climate as positive as possible. Everybody's happy that it's spring. Everybody's happy that the weather is warmer, but at the same time they're tired. And if they're honest with you, and maybe you included, everybody this time of year when the weather gets warm, we start thinking about spring break or summer break. We start thinking about what it's going to feel like when the school year is over. So it's important that we don't lose motivation, and it's important that we don't kind of give in to that feeling of being overwhelmed. So I want to give you a few ideas to consider on how to keep the climate positive and how to keep the motivation high. And you can do this with your teachers, but I would encourage you to encourage your teachers to do these things with their students. Number one is make sure you're giving regular, authentic, positive feedback on their work. I know you have evaluations to do, but don't stop doing walkthrough observations. Maybe you can't stay as long, but make sure you're staying for a few minutes and you're giving your teacher some positive affirmations about the things that they're doing well. When you do have PLCs, make sure that you're giving some positive affirmation on the good work, that your teachers are doing in the classroom. Number two, make sure that you celebrate successes or celebrate goals that have been met anytime you can. So anything you can find that is an authentic, real goal or real success, make sure that you celebrate that and encourage your teachers to be celebrating successes with their kids right now too. Because again, everybody's tired. Everybody's thinking a little bit about the summer, and it's a good time to just make sure that we're accentuating the positive things that are going on. Another one is what I call drops in the bucket. I mentioned a minute ago, don't stop doing walkthroughs right now, but you may not be able to stay as long. Give them a little positive note. In fact, I used to have a notepad that actually looked like a drop of water, and it said on it, drops in the bucket. You don't have to have that, but just drop some little positive affirmations to your teachers in their mailbox, on their desk, however is the easiest way. Even if it's send them a text, send them an email, whatever. When you think of something good like that, even if it's just a little, 30-second note, make sure that you pass those things along. And then my last two are things that I have seen principals do. My principal, when I was a teacher, used to do something called Friday Focus. She would send out an email every Friday that would do some shout outs to teachers that she had seen do something really cool that week, or something that really aligned well with our vision or with our agreements, or something that we were working on. So think about, or if you see a teacher go out of the way to help a student or a family, or you see anybody who's kind of embodying those things that you want all teachers doing. A Friday focus email can be good for that. And then the last one, I just talked to a principal that was doing this the other day. He's doing a short little video shout out. So he's kind of doing a Friday focus, but he might do it on a little video clip just on his phone and then email that to the teacher, or maybe even I think he was actually emailing it to the whole staff. So any little positive things you can do there. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it can really go a long way with your staff at this time of year. And of course, I keep saying teachers, but you can do these things with your classified staff. They're tired and they're looking forward to summer as well, and you need them to finish the year strong just as much as you do your certified staff. Number 4 is double down on PBIS. So, positive behavior intervention and support. You want to double down. You do not want to go away. Now is not the time to go away from your PBS structures and your PBS system. Encourage your teachers right now to continue to practice with their students what the normal expectations and routines are, and to also enforce the normal expectations and routines. Whatever's in your PBIS system, however it says that students should navigate the building and interact with each other, et cetera. Teachers may have to back up and practice those again right now, but they certainly need to reward good behavior and also administer consequences if students aren't doing what they are supposed to do within that behavior system. And then number 5 is watch for spring fever for teachers and students. So I'll say that again. Watch, maybe I should say beware of spring fever for both teachers and students. So I've mentioned everybody's looking forward to the summer, but here's something that happens in schools. When the weather warms up and it's almost spring break and after spring break, it's natural for everybody to want to get outside more. They've been cooped up in the school. Elementary schools have recess. Middle school sometimes will have a break time. High schools may not have either one of those, but they will find ways to get outside more. And so here's the thing on that. I'm a big believer in getting outside, and the sunshine is good for everybody. But the negative is if the schedule starts to feel really loose and flexible and even unpredictable, where students don't know, I'm going to go to class tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to be in class or if we're going to be outside playing kickball or if we're going to be outside under a tree reading, which, by the way, that's good. But routine is important as well. And when the schedule starts to feel loose and flexible and unpredictable, it gets hard for everybody to stay focused and to stay motivated. And let's be honest, some students and really, if we're being honest, some of us as adults really struggle when the routines get out of whack, even if we enjoy the fact that it's spring and the weather's warmer and it's a good time to get outside. We still struggle getting out of the routine. And when that happens, again, with teachers and students, it can lead to increased off-task behavior. It can lead with students to increased misbehavior and really just lower motivation to do well and to finish the year strong. So that one, it sounds a little, the whole thing, even though, people's hearts are in the right place, it's counterproductive. Even if everyone seems like they need it. So then the last thing I'll say, I said I was going to give you a top 5. I'm going to add one more thing because this one kind of blankets all of it. The last thing I'll say is, as the principal, as the leader, and I would say this, if I have a superintendent listening, I'm going to say this for you as well and other district administrators, you need to take care of yourself. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big self-care person. Not that I don't think taking care of ourselves is important. I do. But we all got into education to take care of other people. Like that's why we chose to get into education, because we wanted to put others first. And so I think sometimes we get borderline on overdoing the whole self care message. But in this instance, I want to say to you, as principals, superintendents, and leaders, you need to take care of yourself. In the spring, like I said earlier, you're trying to land the plane for this year while you launch the plane for next year. And all of those things we've been talking about today can burn you out. I think the tips that I gave you will hopefully help. So I hope you'll consider following those. But also, take some time for yourself each day. Pray, read something that you enjoy, watch a TV show. If you like to get outside in nature, do that. You need to do some things right now for yourself to fill your bucket back up. And sometimes you need just some time where it is quiet and it's just you. But you also need to try to spend time with people that you love. Eat a meal with your family. If you can eat a meal together every day, do that. If you can't, do it as often as you can. If you have kids, play with your kids. Go to a movie. Go to a ball game with people that you love. Um, Listen, you're super busy, and clearly there's a lot going on. So you may not be able to do these things for long stretches of time, but it's important that you take at least little bits of time to enjoy being with others and little bits of time for yourself for you to rest and recharge and rejuvenate. When you do those things, though, work on being mentally and physically present. Like, don't be spending time with your family, but your mind is still at school. Really work on when I'm with my family, I'm with them. My mind is not anywhere else. When I'm spending time on my own, whether it's in prayer or reading a book or watching TV, I'm trying to be present in that moment. Try to detach your brain from work because those little breaks can allow your mind to rest and then again become re-energized. And you're going to need that to finish out the year strong. So until next time, I'm rooting for you. I know how tough the job is, but I also know you can do it. You can get to the end of the year and finish it strong and springboard your school or your district into the summer and get ready for a great year next year. This Look at it this way: this spring might be the best spring of your whole career, but even if it isn't, remember we're all blessed to be able to do the work that we get to do that improves the lives of kids and improves the lives of their families and our staff alike. So, thank you for choosing to be a leader in education. And with that, that is all for this week's episode. I will see you next time. I hope you have a great rest of the week and great weekend. And we'll see you next time on the next episode. Take care.